Hey Ratbags, it's Jade today giving you a refresh starter guide for Nightingale. It's had a massive update, the Realms Rebuilt has really changed the way you play and a lot of older guides are totally out of date now. So I'm kicking off my new series of guides with a fresh starter guide encompassing all the new changes to hopefully help new players or maybe returning players a little memory jog of what to do. So if you find this video useful, do leave a like, make sure you subscribe to see all the rest of the new stuff that's incoming. And let's go, a fresh player guide for Nightingale Realms Rebuilt. Nightingale's unlock system has had a revamp. Previously you would have to visit traders to get recipes for new gear and items, now it's simply just a blueprint system. The essence that you've always been able to get will now contribute to unlocking lots of these blueprints. But that doesn't mean you can't find any goodies while exploring. Now there's a whole series of tools and gear to help you get started if you just go and explore the map when you first launch into the Abeyance Forest. These will pop up immediately on your map as treasured items, so make sure you take a good look and go and visit every single one if you don't want to waste any of your essence that you gather on actually unlocking these. There are higher tiers of gear that you won't be able to unlock until you visit the second and then third realm respectively, and it's worth noting that essence is also used to make things like charms as well as more additional spells, so you do need quite a lot of it, but you do get given a generous amount. Certainly enough to unlock all the tier 1 stuff if you go and complete all the points of interest where you find the treasure items and any of the mini side quests. Previously you could grind away at just harvesting resources and dismantling them to get essence, but that only works for higher tiered items now, not just basic stones and sticks. You'll get some essence back when you dismantle other items, but yeah, not as much as you used to either. So if you do ever accidentally make 2 sets of clothing, obviously give one set to your follower, which you'll be able to find later, and the others, if you've made too much, just go ahead and dismantle them. Nightingale still has the same system that you keep all your gear when you die, so you don't have to worry about venturing back to your body to pick up any resources or items. In the beginning stages, it's definitely recommended to just follow the tutorial exactly what Puck is telling you. It has lost that slight sandbox nature of it, but in all honesty it's still much better. The previous version of the game had you travelling through 2 tutorial realms before finally settling into one where you could really build a base and start out. That's been streamlined now, and you'll really spend about 2 to 3 hours completing anything that you need to do on this map before then heading over and really unlocking the full game. You can of course rush that and speed it up if you really want. There aren't that many steps for the tutorial other than making sure you've got an adequate amount of gear to helpfully protect you as you go and take on the first dungeon, i.e. the first site of power. Wildlife as ever is pretty speedy, but they're pretty stupid in running right to you at times, so don't always feel necessary to murder every live creature that comes your way, as you'll come across plenty of hide through your playthrough and you want more advanced hides to make the better gear anyway. You'll head over to the first settlement where you'll find NPCs giving you the next beats of the story and how to get to the site of power, but first you have to clear out some of the enemies. It shouldn't be too taxing even on an increased difficulty, which you can change anytime you sleep. Make sure you're utilising the dodge button wherever possible, and your axe is going to be your best friend in the early stages. These are corrupted hearts. You have to destroy them to stop more enemies spawning, and you'll come across a bunch of places called infestation marked on your map as points of interest to clear out. Each one of these, as well as some of the other puzzle elements, will appear, and these are basically special encounters. You have to complete 3 of them to complete the first tutorial part of the story, and again they're all marked out on your map, so you can choose what you want to partake in. Something more peaceful, then you can go and do the puzzle or agility tests. Otherwise, if you're looking for more combat, then you can go and take on infestation. There has been a nerf overall in the amount of essence that you seemingly receive, but as said, most of the unlocks that you now buy have also been reduced. In my fresh run for this update, I decided not to build a base as much as little as possible and really just focus on exploring, completing every point of interest that had any kind of free gear on it, and I got a ton of resources, so it's definitely worth investigating any statues you come across, as there's always going to be something on the floor, whether it's going to be a raw gem, maybe an ingot, or something more like food. If you're not into base building, you don't have to actually spend hours grinding for resources. You can go and take over a simple bed and place inside any one of the settlements you come across. In fact, the settlement you come across in the second realm has pretty much all the refined crafting stations you will need to progress, so it's worth visiting. If you are a base builder, then go ahead and start making your life here. There's plenty of ways to bring your loot back from other realms, which we'll talk about later, but this was just something I was doing for this playthrough. And you can make your home on any realms, whether it's the storied ones or ones that you spin up yourself that will be more procedurally generated. We'll talk about them again as well later. To create a respawn point, no matter where you are, just simply build one of the estate cairns with just simple stone and wood. Just remember to make what one you place your active one, otherwise it will use the last one placed. Anytime you open up your map, you can return to your spite home instantly by simply teleporting. You'll be able to unlock something called lodestars later, which act as teleportals between areas later. So it's super easy now to get around the maps in Nightingale. So once you've spoken to the NPCs, you've got your story set and you've maybe explored a little bit, do make sure you pick up a follower in the first NPC camp you come across. Any of the guys walking around, it's simple enough, just get to add them. Give them better gear, because the more health and armor they have, the more chance they'll stay alive to come pick you up, especially if you're playing solo. Also pay attention to your weight. Yes, these guys have got strong backs, they'll carry lots of stuff for you, you just simply need to load them up with the heaviest gear. And if you give them a new melee weapon, as they can't use any ranged ones, do make sure you've clicked on it so that it's equipped, otherwise they won't use it. You won't get far in Nightingale unless you're making sure you're well rested and you've got plenty of food. You can have 3 active meals, so it's always better to cook your food, and definitely unlock some recipes so you've got more variety. With a lot of these, you will have to unlock the recipes in the actual cooking blueprint system. There are so many different food types, but loosely speaking, meat food based stuff is going to give you a bit more health, vegetables more stamina, and then there's a mix of other range of benefits you get from certain meals. It's well worth taking a good look at the new recipes that you get to see if they fit your playstyle more. You don't need to give your NPC any food, but put some potions in its inventory and they will use them to heal. And also take advantage of setting what you want them to take out of inventory, how you want them to follow you and behave, so they're not utilising your best resources just to go ahead and cook some mixed berries. Getting a follower is super simple. Just go up to any NPC you see walking around and generally you can get them to accompany you. You can then dismiss them and change them out for another one, but make sure you took any of the resources you've been loading them up with. And something pretty important, make sure you've always got loads of salves. They heal broken bones, which can really slow you down if you fall from a great height. It's more forgiving now. In the latest update, you'll see a little circle showing an upside down mini character basically warning you could break your leg soon. So don't jump or fall from any kind of height, but if you do absolutely do that, then it will go completely red on the circle with the broken leg symbol, and that's when your salve will come in. You can immediately be downed if you fall from too great height, but of course your NPCs can come pick you up. You'll obviously see the symbols telling you might need to sleep in the bottom left hand side alongside your food, and it's definitely recommended you do this enough as you get buffs from being well rested. As mentioned earlier, this is where you can change the difficulty and make it a bit easier or harder, and as said, it won't change what spawns on the map in terms of enemies or resources, but it should mean that enemies become a bit tankier, but you will get more essence. Go ahead and smash up any of the places you come across, as they'll often give good bits of wood and are quick and easy to destroy. As you get to mid-late game stages, you'll notice the puzzle variety gets better, but in the early stages it's a simple case of hitting glyphs in the right order. If you mess up, it does summon a bunch of the bound, which you'll have to defeat before starting again. So pay attention to where they're actually going, what order they are in, and then you can either activate them using your hand, or you can use any kind of range gear or a sickle. These will get more complex as you go through the game, with up to 4, 5, maybe even 7 of these glyphs that need to be activated in the right order. The other puzzles or agility stuff consist of trying to find specific red glyphs marked out in and around a ruin, or simply climbing a large structure to get the reward at the very top. Pretty much all creatures in Nightingale have various weaknesses and strengths against certain weapons. If you're doing good damage, you should see the damage numbers pop up as yellow with maybe a green arrow, and if you hit a critical hit, it should pop up as gold. If your weapon's not that suitable, you should see a little down arrow, and obviously this will be red. You can turn damage numbers off in the options menu, I do believe, but definitely recommended in the early stages so you get used to using the right weapon for the right creature. Most enemies have abundance of critical hit shots, where obviously their head is a good place to aim, but also in their heart. You will unlock spells later that will be able to show you the weak points of an enemy. Recently added are now bows, adding to the range aspect. While they don't have a different amount of elemental arrows, that is going to be coming in the future. It's probably worth getting used to them now. Here's where they are on the map when you first load in if you want to go and get the new bow. They can be used to destroy barriers, and they're pretty good for certain aspects like trying to get critical hits or even taking on some of the corrupted hearts, where you'll do more damage if you hit the actual heart part of it. Albeit a little bit slower than using just your axe. This, alongside the Slingbow, is the only range weapons you'll have access to until you've completed the first realm. Once you get to Sylvian's Cradle, that's when you can start unlocking more guns. It has had a bit of a gaining more experience with the game. Previously you could visit various different realms, buy the recipes for guns from traders, and then as long as you had the right kind of crafting bench and materials, you could go ahead and make it. You did have to open up a specific set level of realm to actually do this, so it's kind of the same, but it definitely feels like it's been more guided this time, and I think it's actually working out better. But once you get to the second realm, that's when you're going to open up the tier 2 essences, as well as a lot of the tier 2 workbenches and more. As said, you will be able to get the Slingbow. It's pretty much one of the free tools you'll find on the map. If you ever see any barrels, especially gold laden ones, make sure you destroy them, as these will contain usually some ammo. Otherwise it's pretty cheap to make the rock ammo needed for the Slingbow. And throughout the game you'll be able to make different types of elemental ammo. Things like ice and lightning bullets for whatever gun it is you're using, even the Slingbow. At the moment though, there is no elemental arrows. That is going to be coming in the future. So alongside wolves and bears, it's obviously the bounds that you'll be taking on throughout Nightingale, and they come in various different forms. From little grunts that don't have much health to the bomb throwers and guys with giant swords. The trick with any combat situation is to just make sure you're blocking and dodging. I don't want to tell you how to suck a lemon, it's pretty easy to work out, but you have got a lot of strength in your blocking ability. You can block and tank pretty much a lot of big hits, even from the guys with the biggest swords. Even when you get shot by some of the bound that have giant bazookas on their back, you can actually block it and take or reduce some of the damage. There is a blocking bar, so you've got to pay attention to it a little bit, but I definitely recommend getting used to blocking, as it helps you out so much more rather than just being nimble. And obviously if you are working on being a fast moving character, then ranged items might be better, as well as daggers. There are so many different varieties of bound, I'll probably leave it for another guide in talking about how to best deal with them. But come on, you know what to do. Pick up your weapon, swing at them, or fire your gun. Either way, you'll get there. The bound, just like other creatures, will have various different weak points, and it's worth focusing on the head the majority of the time. They definitely increase in difficulty and variety as you get through with witches and others, but in the first 2 or 3 realms, there's nothing really that you need specific guides on how to take them on. To help you traverse, you can use the climbing picks, another free tool you'll find in the beginning stages, and these can be upgraded to give you more durability and more stamina use when you're using them. It took me a while to get the hang of. Try and aim at the edges as much as possible, and you can either grapple yourself up or you can use them like traditional climbing picks and just start climbing. And quite famous by now, umbrellas are your friend. It's always worth upgrading them, even if you don't think they have that much of a use other than just helping you glide. Obviously they do help keep the elements away from you, and the better the umbrella, the more stamina usage you'll get, or the more flight time you'll get. There are Twitch drops going at the moment, so go and check out your favourite Twitch streamer. I recommend Katari. And you can earn this horrendous purple set of gear, but it does have some buffs. It's actually a bit of a cheesy item, as it has levels above the starter gear you get. Especially the umbrella, that will serve you a good amount of time in the game. The majority of the tools, you can put any kind of magic spell you want on it. For example, newly added immolation spells where you can fire giant fireballs. There's still spells where you can set your own weapons alight to give fire damage or even heal yourself. And like a lot of the spells, the longer you hold the spell button down, the more powerful the effect will be. You can increase the effects of these spells by making sure your gear has better magicka score. Something to bear in mind with new weapons. A general rule of thumb, if you've got 2 main weapons you're using, like a knife and an axe, then obviously make sure they've got the most combat offensive spells on them, and at least maybe a recovery spell. Any other spells that are going to give you buffs to do with gathering resources or making things regrow or find enemies, then they're going to be utilised on some stuff that you don't use all the time. Maybe like your sickle if that's something you're not using, or even the climbing picks. As said earlier, there's plenty of creatures you'll come across and kill to get their hides, and different hides and different meats are going to give you slightly different properties. A huge part of Nightingale is the crafting still in terms of min-maxing and getting the perfect build, and so you'll be hunting down more rarer and legendary creatures to give yourself better buffs. Even on the starting realm now, there is a rich variety in legendary creatures, or fabled creatures as they're called, and these can give you more different types of hides and meats that can be more beneficial. They usually will be named and you'll be able to tell them apart due to their colour, so it's definitely worth killing these guys. They should respawn over time. If not, you may have to spin up more realms to go and find more in caves or any of the areas where it might be marked. As you progress, you will find that as soon as you load up a procedurally generated map, they will show the points of any of these creatures around. But the first realm, story realm that you explore, it doesn't really pop up until you get close to them. So have a good run around and maybe look out for my guide showing you how to defeat them all. I know I've been saying that a lot, but there's just simply so much in Nightingale, it does have to be split up a little bit. But these are the types of hides and meats you're really looking for and making sure that they fit your build. Some will give buffs to range damage, magic or melee, and that's obviously the main benefits most. Look away now if you're not a fan of spooders, because they are in Nightingale and they're pretty terrifying, but there is a arachnophobia mode that you can turn on or off or adjust in the main menu, so just be warned. As you would expect, these guys can give a poison debuff that will reduce your health over time, and again there are more variants of them that you'll find, especially the fabled ones are pretty tough. Kiting can be used in a multitude of ways, just like hide, to go ahead and make yourself new clothing, gear and more. So it might be well worth conquering your fear, or just turn the arachnophobia mode on. There are so many different points of interest and ruins you'll come across, many with usable crafting benches. So if you ever need a quick pit stop, make sure you've got enough food cooked ready to go, and it's often worth scouring every single one you find. There really is usually always something around some of these little ruins or statues. And as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong in you making or starting off one of these places as your main base, but be warned, you won't be able to go ahead and easily dismantle anything already standing. You will instead have to go ahead and whack it with your axe. But of course, anything else you build, you'll be able to dismantle nice and easy. Crafting, it hasn't changed in Nightingale, only simply the way that you unlock the crafting benches and the augmentations. These are decor items that you'll place around and they'll give you buffs to your crafting. Again, something changed where they used to be required to unlock certain recipes for different types of ammo, weapons and gear. Now it's simply just about giving you buffs or reducing the crafting time. And of course, some of them do give you bonus resources. Well, you'll get more out of what you're refining. There are small little symbols to check with the augments, and again you will be able to unlock these majority through your playthrough via the blueprint system, but the game probably does need a bit more help defining which ones work with which. Pretty much a lot of the augments now will have multi-use in reducing refining time, but some are still very specific. Look out for ones that are going to give you boosts and bonuses to tools that are made or weapons and clothing. You can get extra buffs like extra durability, extra health, magic and stamina regain, and a lot more. So yeah, lean into the build that you're trying to focus on. What have you enjoyed in your first few hours of Nightingale? Is it melee, is it range, is it magic? Utilise the right resources that you've already got. Have they got more magic properties? Have they got more melee or ranged? And then focus on the augments that are going to give you extra buffs in them. If that all sounds much like too hard work, then you can just neglect it. Pretty much just put a ton of them down and you'll be okay. The weapons and armour that you'll craft, as long as you're using better gear, will certainly give you a big boost. The previous system was overcomplicated with even more minute detail in what exactly all of these augments ever did, but it has been streamlined somewhat. There are so many crafting benches in Nightingale still, especially with all the upgraded versions, so do pay attention to the blueprint menu, and I am doing that boring thing of telling you how to play a game, but read the menus. Work out that the enchanters table is where not only do you get to go ahead and make the realm cards needed to traverse to other realms, but also how you make your magic spells and charms that you can apply to your weapons and gear. Most of the crafting benches are going to have limited slots until you go ahead and upgrade them, so do pay attention to the green arrows and blueprints when you place them down to which ones they're connected to. And if you've got too many filling a slot, then you simply need to remove some of them and just block them off. So it might even be best advised to have a little cupboard filled with your augments that you can just move in and out if you need to. And I definitely recommend a large open space to have a crafting area with all your stations available nice and easy. Although, as said earlier, I have got by just taking over some of the settlements I found. This is on Sylvian's Cradle, and it had all of these crafting benches pretty much in it already. I just simply had to add some augment stations. It can seem a bit daunting at first with crafting, but there is the add all option, which will take anything you've already got in your chest and just simply try and craft the item you want. This is great for non-min-maxer players who may be playing it on a bit of an easier difficulty. But to get the best out of Nightingale, it really is worth investing in making sure you make your components out of the resources that are going to contribute most to your magic, your ranged or your melee builds. So you might need a shaft, which then gets turned into a barrel for your gun, and so you want to make sure you've got a metal that gives range damage or critical hit damage. This applies to all your clothing gear as well, with the fibres that you can make as well as the threads. But out of everything, I really do think it matters with your weapons, particularly melee, which you'll be using the majority of the time until you get better guns. Use your best resources for melee weapons especially. When you're crafting, you can swap in and out the resource that it needs for something better, and as long as your chests are nearby, it will simply just take from it unless you set that setting. Something else to bear in mind, make sure you use the settings well on your chest so that you're not making something really basic like potions or other items like ammo. There is a risk if you're just crafting everything from all, you could be using your best materials that won't have an effect. Certain items like ammo and potions won't change exactly the composition of them in how much they heal you just because you use better resources. So it takes a bit of trial and error, but you should see the results anytime you go to craft something on the right hand side of the menu, showing you exactly what it's going to give you. So maybe have a special chest set that you can't craft from storage. So anything that looks super valuable, you can keep until you've got a bit more time to look at the stats and see if it might be better used later. As you progress through the realms, you will notice that they have got gear score numbers, or basically telling you what kind of level you should be at with your gear score. So the first realm that you start off in is pretty much level 10. Sylvian's Cradle will be level 20 and Welkin's Reach will be level 30. Now remember, that's only the base realm score. You can make it higher or lower by choosing difficulty when you sleep, as mentioned as well. So although this is a level 20 realm, because I put it on champion mode, the difficulty has made some of these enemies now level 40. And then you can work out that you might want to try and get your gear score close to that to make life a bit easier in taking them on. Investing in resources that are going to give you more of a higher buff and damage, using the augments to craft better gear, and bearing in mind that all of your gear relies on average, just like a lot of loot shooters. Whatever weapon you're holding contributes a lot, so make sure you've always got your highest available tiered weapon pretty much going at all times. But do remember, if you've got something really low like a backpack or a pair of shoes that you haven't managed to upgrade yet, then that's going to bring down your overall score quite a bit. Previously, some areas were locked off completing, like boss dungeons, until you had the right level gear score, but it seems to be more story based now that you have to complete some of the main quests to gain access to the sites of power, especially for the first realm that you come across. So if you tried rushing because you're a slightly older player that remembers some stuff, then yeah, you do need to complete the main quest first before gaining access to the site of power. Before we talk more about them, just a few general tips I've found, especially with the new update. The Crossways is your main hub now, where you can go through the story realms and progress. You can teleport to these crossways anywhere on any map straight away just by looking at your map and choosing the right option, as well as teleport directly to wherever you put your respite stone. I really think lots of the other realms will be better places to build your base, as you'll just get more rewards from generally going around gathering resources, and there might even be some better locations. So maybe think about setting up some baskets on the crossways, and this way you can have a lot of your gear just there ready to go if you are going to traverse and move some of your gear elsewhere. Older guides and gameplay videos will definitely show you can set up your portals anywhere, and that is still true. But now it's gated a little bit further, maybe through the main quest on the first realm you explore, so maybe not that far, and then you can go ahead and start unlocking more cards to give yourself more variety. You won't be able to immediately jump to the hardest realms until you've gone and visited them as part of the story, as you will need tier 2 cards or tier 3 cards to go ahead and unlock them, but it's still worth setting one of these up to see if any of the procedure generated maps maybe tick your base building box a little bit more. There are still 3 main biomes in the game: desert, swamp and forest, and then the base level of them realms will be dictated by the title before it: Antiquarian, Abeyance, Gauntlet. But you really don't have to live on one of the storied realms. You can set up, as I said, your bases anywhere and just teleport to the crossways anytime you want to go and partake in more of the story, or progress and unlock new realms or new items. In previous guides, I probably spoke a lot more about these different types of realms because you could unlock them a bit quicker. So I'm going to do some more detailed guides on each type of realm to give you a heads up about what to expect in the future. But effectively, things still remain the same. The desert, you will need your umbrella out quite a bit, or some foods or items that will help reduce environmental damage. Not to be confused with certain statuses you get like Maleficent, which I just about can say, from certain enemies, or other debuffs. Environmental protection will give you more protection against things like rain and the sun. And likewise, if you're travelling through the swamp, then you've got to be a bit more careful of being wet, as that can reduce your stamina usage and more. If it starts raining too hard and it's hailstorming, then you will start taking damage too. There's definitely a lot more variety in the enemies as you start going and visiting either the desert or the swamp, with automatons on the desert being the main ones, as well as creepy crawlies like scorpions and bugs. And while I'm not showing it here, but swamps do have a bit more scary creatures, like terrifying harpies. And yeah, for sure, a lot of these creatures will have different types of buffs, especially when you go and skin them to give your gear better protection. Last thing to note about maps, previously you would go and complete a site of power and it would unlock all the different markers on a map. Now that may still be the case, but as you can see from this footage here, this is the first time I'm setting foot in the desert and it's already showing a bunch of stuff. So do pay close attention to the map and what kind of activities you want to head to, or any points of interest that look like they might have something. But most importantly, resources, specific ones, only spawn on certain biomes. And I'm repeating this again because it's a big change from how Nightingale used to play, and again you might see older guides referencing that the higher level you are, the more chance you've got of finding certain resources, and even some low level resources only spawn if you are indeed on a low level map. But that has now been changed, so it should be a case of having to check with a realm card the info before you even play it, what kind of resources might spawn on it. And again, I know it's boring to hear, but this will probably take a bigger and better guide once I've put even more hours into the game. So if you're really looking for something really unique, or you just can't seem to find silver or another particular type of ore or wood, it simply might not exist on that realm and you'll have to spin up a new one with a new biome to go and check and see if it's there. You'll hopefully have noticed some trees or maybe some fibres that you can't harvest until you maybe get a better tool. These look pretty different from the regular trees for whatever biome it is. Like these ribbon woods, you can really see they're very different, and they've often got very different leaves at the top. So if you're trying to spot some of these more unique resources, make sure you're paying attention to the forest for the trees. These are the types of resources that you can start min-maxing or utilising to make better gear. On the second realm that you visit, you can clearly see these have got yellow leaves, very different from the trees with the red corruption all over. And there's even more harder to find resources that you'll find, usually tier 4 or 5, that have got specific 1 or 2 places it will spawn on a map, and you will definitely need the best tools to get them. But that will have to be explained in another video. I've put nearly 200 hours into Nightingale since it launched, and certainly this update has massively improved the environments that you explore, making it more worthwhile to go and explore a cave, as you're guaranteed to either find a higher level creature in there, or maybe some decent resources, or even some of the side quests involve you finding certain things like special glyphs. And you generally just get more reward for doing a lot more of these. So try not to rush just because you want to get to more late game stuff. Do take a look at some of the side quests available, as they really will be worth your time. It looks to be there's more places like this now with corruption everywhere that you might need special gear, or at least being able to jump and move around a bit easier so you're not succumbed by it. And do pay more attention to the places you are exploring, as there is usually some sort of reward in hard to reach places. Things like roofs with half made attics, they'll definitely have some sort of chest inside. And again, these can be quite rewarding with some of the materials it give you. And finishing off for now, the places of power definitely are more challenging now. They're bigger, they're larger, and they'll have a lot more enemies usually in them. So you may need to get more prepared and make sure you've got enough gear to really go through the gauntlet of them. Taking out a lot of the corrupted hearts to stop them from spawning should be the priority whenever you go into one of these places, rather than focusing on 1 or 2 individual enemies. And there's usually quite a lot of these situated in some of these places of power. And I'm sure you notice the cracks in walls as you explore ruins and houses. Make sure you destroy them, as there'll often be loot hidden behind, or simply shortcuts to other places. Scattered across all the map, especially in some of these dungeons, you'll find these sparkling lore notes. Some of them are important to parts of the side quest or even the main story sometimes, finding them all. So even though you're not into big lore, do go and check them out, as they'll give you some of the essence as well. And just the last word on customization. Of course, you had it at the start, you can make your character look how you want, but you can also change how things look as you progress. Not just by upgrading your gear, but there is now a transmogrification system in the game. You will need to find glamour tokens, which you can normally find in the big, larger chests at either some of the sites of power or any of the larger dungeons. Maybe even sometimes in certain caves. These can then be used to go ahead and make something look like something else that you've already unlocked or found. My favourite use out of these is making my backpack disappear, as you can make things look invisible. So do check out the actual transmogrification table, which I do believe is called a glamour station. It should be in either the tier 1 or tier 2 blueprints. And that's pretty much it. A bit of everything in this guide. I did kind of start out as just a returning player guide, but I realised there wasn't much value in that because most of you guys will probably work out how to do some of this stuff yourself. And I just thought there was more value in hopefully bringing new players up to speed in a quick way with what Nightingale has to offer. There's definitely a lot more detail can go into, and hopefully you won't be too frustrated watching older guides, as a lot has now changed. But fingers crossed, you're going to be subscribed, you've got notification bell dinged, and I'm going to be bringing you all brand new guides to Nightingale, everything you need to know. So until next time, Ratbags, I'll catch you later.